Never.
They called it a wedding, but everyone in the throne room knew it was an offering. I stood 3 steps below the obsidian throne while my father read the decree that tied my life to a stranger's name. Princess Alara Vale is pledged in blood to Kael Vespern, Lord of Black Moon Keep, Emperor Aldrich said, as if announcing the weather. The courtiers lowered their eyes, not out of respect for me, but because no one wanted to be seen staring at a sacrifice. My brother, Crown Prince Damien, let himself smile just enough that only I could see it. He had the tired smile of a man who had moved one more piece across a board only he understood. My fingers were numb around the thin chain of my mother's ring, hidden in my sleeve. Mother used to say the Suncrest throne was built from promises and bones, and that one day I would be asked to pay for both. I had not expected the bill to arrive at 19. A priest stepped forward with a shallow silver bowl, its surface bright enough to show me a warped version of my own face. The blood we gave was meant to keep a very old war asleep. I watched the knife glint and thought of the forbidden mountains, the rumors, the brides whose names had fallen out of songs. I held out my hand anyway. The cut was quick. My blood fell into the bowl, dark and heavy, like it already knew where it was going. "You will bring honor to Suncrest," my father said, still not quite looking at me. Honor meant I would leave and come back only as a line in a treaty no one read. When the ceremony ended, voices returned to the hall, rising around me like flies around meat. The only person who spoke to me on my way out was a young woman in simple gray waiting by the door. "Princess Alara," she said, bowing with sharp precision. "I am Lydia Crane, assigned to your service." Her dark eyes weighed me the way a butcher weighs an animal before cutting it. "Do you know where you are going?" she asked quietly as the guards moved ahead. "Into the mist," I said. She nodded once, as if that answer was enough for now. We left the palace at dawn before the city could decide whether to line the streets or hide behind shutters. A few faces watched from high windows, pale and round in the gray morning light. Somewhere a child pointed at my carriage and was pulled back by a frightened hand. No one threw flowers. The farther we rode from Suncrest, the more the sun felt like a distant coin behind clouded glass. Fields gave way to scrub, then to bare rock and twisted pines that looked like they had grown while listening to bad stories. Lydia sat opposite me in the carriage, leather satchel at her feet, hands folded as if she were only a maid and not the only one watching the horizon. "Have you ever seen Black Moon Keep?" I asked. "No," she said, "but I have counted how many brides have left for it. How many came back?" Her silence was answer enough. On the 3rd day, the air turned cold without warning, and frost traced pale veins across the inside of the glass. By the time the first curtain of black fog appeared ahead of us, the horses were restless, ears pinned flat. The captain of my escort, a veteran with a scar like a river down his jaw, rode up to my window. "This is the border, Your Highness," he said. "We ride as far as the Standing Stones." "And beyond that?" I asked. "Beyond that, only their laws apply." The Standing Stones rose from the earth like broken teeth, carved with symbols deep enough to hold their own darkness. We passed between them, and sound thinned until the world felt padded and far away. Color followed, eaten slowly by the rolling fog pressing against the road like a living thing. Black Moon Keep emerged from that fog all at once, far too close, like a face you realize has been watching you in the dark. Its towers did not grow straight. They bent, as if the stone had tried to pull away from whatever sat at its core. The gate yawned open without a sound, and a single figure in black stood beneath the arch. At first, I thought the band across his eyes was some proud, cruel ornament, until I saw where the metal bit into skin, the iron was hammered in, a blindfold turned into a lock. "Princess Alara Vale," the man said, voice low and even. "Welcome to Black Moon Keep." This then was Cale Vespern, the stranger whose name had been poured over my blood. He bowed with perfect formality, every movement controlled, as if any slip might break whatever held him together. "Lord Vespern," I said, and my voice did not shake, which felt like a small, private victory. The fog curled around his boots and did not quite touch him. "You must be tired from the road," he said. "The castle will show you to your chambers." He did not offer his arm. Instead, he stepped aside, and a corridor unfurled from the darkness behind him, stone stretching and reshaping itself toward me. Lydia let out the smallest breath beside me, the closest thing to fear I had heard from her. My first step over the threshold felt like putting my foot past a set of waiting teeth. The walls slid closed behind us with a soft, wet sound that made the back of my neck go cold. The corridor bent when I did not, angles drifting, doors blooming and sealing themselves again as we passed. The air smelled of old smoke, cold iron, and something sweet rotting just out of sight. "Do not look back," Lydia whispered, though I had no intention of doing it. At the end of the shifting hall, a heavy door waited, etched with looping patterns that never settled into letters. It opened on its own as I reached for it. The room beyond was already arranged for me, though I had never sent a list of what I liked. The bed, the wardrobe, the mirror, even the small writing desk were almost exactly like the ones in my chamber at Suncrest, only wrong by a finger's width in every direction. The walls pulsed once, subtle as a breath.
"We cannot trust anyone."
"Bride's
down here,
chamber."
Alara.
Cale's voice came from the doorway behind me, though I had not heard him follow. "The castle listens," he said. "It will learn you." I looked at my stretched reflection in the mirror and wondered how much of me would still be mine when it was done. I woke because it felt like someone had whispered right against my ear, but the room held only walls quietly stitching shut the cracks of darkness. Gray-green light poured through a window that looked out on nowhere at all, as if it were being poured in from an invented sky. Lydia stood at the foot of the bed, gray dress neat, holding a black gown on a wooden hanger. "You are invited to the Great Hall," she said. "Lady Marith wishes to meet the new bride." The word bride in Lydia's mouth sounded like the name of an endangered species. I sat up, feet to the cold stone, and realized the walls were slowly relaxing, like some vast creature had only just been pressed against my skin. "Is the castle awake?" I asked. "It doesn't sleep," Lydia replied, eyes on the black dress. "It just decides when to pretend it's comfortable." The black gown fit perfectly, as if the castle had taken my measurements while I slept.
"This will be your formal attire for the
When Lydia
coronation,
fastened the high collar at my throat, it felt like putting on a new oath. We stepped into the corridor, where light came not from torches but from cracks in the stone, leaking out like ghostly script. A man waited there, long black coat, white gloves unstained despite the damp and grime of the stone. "Princess Alara," he said, bowing neatly.
It is for a
"Elion
very
Crow,
special occasion.
steward of Black Moon Keep." His smile was thin as a blade, polished so carefully there was no room left for sincerity. "Lady Marith awaits in the Great Hall," Elion said, turning to lead. "And feeding hour approaches, you will want to be on time for supper." Something in those two words leaked from the stone into my spine, a chill like dirty water down my neck. "Feeding hour?" I echoed. "Each night the castle adjusts its appetites. Elion replied, as
Pleasure
if
to
discussing
finally
the
make your
weather.
acquaintance.
You will have it explained more fully at
He
table.
watched the others scramble for power.
The great hall
So
opened
believed
before
they
us
would
like a
gain arms
cathedral
like
stripped of
whispers.
its gods,
He knew the true leaders
leaving
of
only
control.
stone
If
and
you would
long
please continue
shadows.
this way.
The feast
I
table
believe
was a
you'll find
long strip of
preparations for the feeding
obsidian,
hour are
its
complete.
candles burning with black flames that cast cold, warped halos on the ceiling. At the head of the table sat a woman on a chair 1 step higher than the rest,
Are you sure?
her dark purple cloak looking as if it had been woven from bruises.
Are you sure?
Matriarch Myrith Vestbairn wore no crown, but her silver hair was pinned with small bones like a flock of dead birds. Kael sat at her right hand, silent, the iron blindfold refusing to catch the black firelight. Princess Elara Vale, Marith said, her voice low and warm, the kind that belonged to a kinder mother. Welcome to our home. I bowed my head, feeling the look sliding over my skin like cooled bladea. May you stay with us longer than the brides before you, Marith said gently, as if offering a toast to my health. The drink in my cup was as red as wine, but it tasted like iron and
Come,
frozen
join
raindrops. The food spread out, lovely like still life paintings of hunger. Meat sliced thin enough to see veins, seedless fruit, brown loaves stuffed with something I refused to name. Kael did not
To the
eat.
victor.
He only touched gloved fingers to the rim of a cup that never reached his mouth. Feeding hour, Marith said, dabbing her lips with a black cloth, is when Black Moon Keep chooses its portion. Portion of what? I asked, keeping my voice even. Time, memory, occasionally flesh, she replied with a small shrug.
Your mistakes
The people
are your
around the
own.
table laughed, some
But
out
they
of
must be
flattery,
paid for.
others because they didn't know what else to do with that answer. The bell rang then, 3 times, each toll falling as deep as the bottom of a well. The flames atop the black candles shrank, then flared a
changes
cold
nothing.
blue, turning everyone's skin the color of corpses. Feeding hour, Marith said, setting down her cup, begins now. Elion appeared beside my chair so quickly I never heard his steps. My lady, he said, the rules are simple. When the castle begins to feed, you must move faster than it does. Before I could ask, my chair slid back a little of its own accord. The first night is always a game, Marith said, turning to Kael. Give her a destination. Kael turned his head toward me, though his eyes were covered. The Wind Tower, he said, top level. If you reach it before the walls close, the castle will let you stay another night. And if I don't? I asked. Elion gave a sorrowful little smile. Then the castle will not need another bride at all, he answered.
She struggles so
The
beautifully.
walls of the great hall began to shift, pillars stretching, the floor cracking into black lines like tongues. Come, Lydia whispered, tugging my sleeve. Running is prettier than being carried.
From the Cinderwild.
We bolted from the
comes
table,
Dreadfang.
past guests who calmly kept eating as if the floor weren't opening its mouth. The far doors inhaled us, closing like lungs around a breath. The corridor outside no longer matched
There
what
is
we'd
no other
entered.
path.
It was longer, narrower, sloping upward like the inside of a throat. The Wind Tower is at the top, Lydia said, but the path is never the same twice.
We need to move.
We ran, my black dress sweeping stone that sometimes gave under my skirt like flesh. Doors sprouted from the walls, some ajar, spilling yellow light and muffled voices like someone else's forgotten memories. Don't look in, Lydia said. Those who pause during feeding hour rarely make it to breakfast. I kept my eyes fixed upward, where a thin knife of light slit the stone throat far above. Steps began to sprout beneath our feet, one at a time, just enough to keep us from falling, just enough to feel led. Halfway up, Lydia stopped suddenly, dragging me flush against the wall. The stretch of floor ahead shuddered and dropped, revealing a black pit glittering with stone teeth.
Don't look back.
From the pit below, something laughed, sounding like boiling water and metal scraping together. It's hungry, Lydia murmured. Don't give it a reason. We took another staircase, narrow enough that my shoulders brushed walls softer than I wanted them to be. At a bend, I heard chains dragging in a steady heartbeat rhythm somewhere behind us. Not for us, Lydia said. Don't stop. We climbed to a landing that opened onto a long, straight hall, its walls smooth and reflective like mirrors that had lost their images. When I looked, my own faint reflection drifted aside, replaced by a woman in a wedding dress gone yellow with age. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but only water poured out before her image shattered into streaks of light. Go! Lydia jerked my hand, her voice edged with real panic this time. We ran and other figures began to drift along the walls. Brides I didn't know, faces cut out of songs. The hall shuddered, and somewhere above, wind howled into a space it hadn't yet found. We're close to the tower, Lydia said, breathless. From here you must go alone. And you? I asked. I'm not part of this game, Lydia said, stepping back into a new pocket of shadow opening behind her. I turned to the steep stair where cold wind was pouring down like from the mouth of a giant well. With every step I climbed, the wind grew stronger, trying to push me back, tugging at my dress like invisible hands. As I neared the light, the step under my foot shrank, vanished, and I dropped into empty air for a heartbeat. My hand caught an old chain hanging from the ceiling, cold and rusted. Beneath me yawned a hollow drilled into the castle's heart, where wind and wet laughter blended.
Are you sure?
The chain slipped in my grip inch by inch, and I knew I couldn't hold on long. Enough, a low voice said from somewhere above, not loud but louder than the wind. The chain jolted taut in my hands as if someone had grabbed the other end and nailed it into stone. The missing step grew back beneath me, slowly, almost sulking. I climbed the last stretch hard in my ears, and Kyle waited at the threshold to the tower, his face half eaten by light and half by shadow. Blood seeped from the edge of the iron blindfold, tracing a thin red down his cheek. You told the castle to let me go? I asked. I told it not to waste you, Kyle said, turning his face toward the wind screaming through the stone gaps. I stepped past him into the wind tower, where black sky and rolling fog showed through jagged openings. From here, Black Moon Keep looked like some colossal beast curled in the fog, its bent towers, its ribs. You reached your mark, Kale said evenly. The castle will grant you another night. And what does it take in return? I asked. Kyle tilted his head as if the question had come not from me, but from somewhere deeper in the stone. It tastes your fear, he said. It favors those who sweat and keep moving. I wiped sweat from my brow, unsure whether I had been praised or warned. A weak bride, Kyle said, turning his covered gaze toward me, should let the castle eat her on the first step. I stared at the iron over his eyes, at the drying line of blood, and saw not just cruelty there, but the exhaustion of someone who had said this too many times. Fortunately, I said, my voice dry, I am not weak. The wind screamed around us like the castle's laughter, and somewhere in the stone I felt it taking note of what I'd just said. The next morning I woke with the taste of dried salt on my skin and the wind still rattling somewhere in my bones. The castle had softened, walls flatter, the light through the window less the color of bruises. Lydia brought water in a dark metal basin, steam rising with the smell of silver and ash. Congratulations, she said, handing me the cloth. You survived your first feeding hour. I washed my face, watching dried blood and stone dust cloud the water, thinking of the step growing back under my boots like a reluctant frown. Does the castle often change its mind? I asked. It doesn't change its mind, Lydia said. It changes its appetite. After a silent breakfast of hard bread and bitter tea, Elion arrived, tapping lightly on the doorframe like a man checking a coffin for occupants. "Princess Alara,"
So
he
cold.
said. "Lady Marith is occupied, Lord Vespin is occupied, so the castle grants you a free morning." The word "free" here sounded like a drop of blood in water, just to see what surfaced first. "Where may I go?" I asked. "The castle will make suggestions," Elion
You'll need
replied.
this.
"But if you want advice, avoid places with mirrors." Naturally, that was the surest way to make me notice every single thing that reflected. Lydia walked with me halfway until a corridor veered left, narrower,
place?
brighter, its walls
Is
glossy.
anyone here that...
"Don't go that way," Lydia said, not looking at it. "That is the Hall
I
of
think that is
Wedding
enough for
Mirrors." The name dropped between us like a weight, and the left-hand wall pulsed once, as if answering. "And so?" I asked. Lydia pressed her lips together. "I have reports to make," she said at last. "You should
You would do
walk
well to
somewhere
remember
safer."
that.
She turned away, leaving me with a choice the castle clearly wanted to watch. I looked into the gleaming corridor and saw my blur reflected in the stone like ink not yet dry. Then I stepped in. The air here felt thinner, as if it had already been used to breathe for someone else. The sides were not true mirrors, but black stone polished so deep it swallowed light and gave back warped silhouettes. At first, I saw only myself, stretched, blurred, neck higher, eyes deeper. Then that shape slid aside and another girl stepped into its place. She wore an old Suncrest wedding gown, puffed sleeves, thick lace, silver trim gone dull. Her face looked so much like mine that my heart skipped before I could tell the difference. But her features were softer, her smile shyer, and in her eyes was a kind of hope my father hadn't yet wrung dry. "Who are you?" I whispered, even knowing I was speaking to stone.
Farewell, Alara.
The girl's lips in the stone moved. "Lady Elira Dawncrest," the voice came as if from the bottom of a well. "Bride of Lord Cale Vespern." The name, Dawncrest, crawled over my skin like old ink. A minor branch scrubbed from the Vale family trees long ago. "Suncrest?" I asked. "Empire of Suncrest," Elira answered, her smile thinning. "A lifetime before yours?" Behind her in the stone, the Hall of Wedding Mirrors appeared again, full of people, bright lights, cheerful noise, as if the world had never heard of feeding hour. Elira stood in the center holding white flowers. Kyle beside her, younger, no iron blindfold yet, only a thin band of metal at his temple. I saw my father in the crowd, younger, only a prince, with the same eyes he had when he signed me into the blood pact. Someone was laughing, someone was blessing them, but the words turned to foam before they reached my ears. "How did you die?" I asked, the question too quick to dress itself up. Elira laughed, a tiny sound
What
like
is this
glasses
place?
touching in a room already empty. "I did not die," she said. "I was kept." The stone around us shivered, neighboring panels cracking open to show more weddings, more brides, more coils. Each bride was a variation, each coil a step closer to the iron blindfold. "The blood pact demands two things," Elira said, "royal blood and the bride's memory." "What does it want with memory?" I asked. "To build history," Elira replied, "and to lock it in, layer by layer." I looked around and understood the Hall of Wedding Mirrors was not a gallery, but a giant scroll wrapped around the heart of Black Moon Keep. "Emperor Aldrich brought me here," Elira said, before he ever wore a crown. The scene shifted, young Aldrich placing Elira's hand into Kyle's, the way you hand over a key to lock a war. "In return, Suncrest had peace," Elira said, "and I had this." She placed her hand on the inside of the stone exactly where mine rested.
And filled with hope.
For a moment, cold sliced through my skin as if half my hand now belonged to the other side. "You will be kept too," Elira said, "unless you break this." Break it how? I asked, my voice rough. By rewriting a layer, Elira said. But each layer you change will take one of yours. One memory, she added. One name, one bond. I thought of Damien, of my mother, of the faces in the palace, and suddenly realized I didn't have many things I could give up without becoming a stranger to myself. On the wall beside us, another bride wept, but her tears flew upward, turning into small characters that clung to the stone. Why are you helping me? I asked Elira. Her smile was as faint as the last inch of a candle. Because I remember what you are about to forget, she said.
I swear.
Forget what? I asked. But the hall of wedding mirrors rang once, as if someone had struck the castle's bones in anger. The images smeared, Elira torn into streaks of light and dragged deeper into the stone. Enough, another voice said, this time not Elira's but Kale's. I turned and saw him there, hand on the wall, the iron over his eyes vibrating as if under strain. I told them not to let you in here, he said, his voice not quite angry but far from pleased. The castle invited me, I replied. I thought it listened to you. The corner of Kael's mouth twitched, not in amusement. It listens when it is useful, he said, and it has a fondness for curious brides.
I remember what it was like.
He came close enough that I could see the thin scars around the iron, like tiny letters carved with a knife. You are seeing what was not meant for you, he said. Layers that do not belong to your age. Lady Elira Dancrest belongs to my age, I answered, and she deserves to be remembered. Elira's name made the stone beneath my hand grow one layer colder. Kael was silent for a beat, then pulled his hand from the wall like someone who had kept his palm in the fire too long. I was there when they tried to sacrifice her, he said, each word heavy as stone. When the blood pact slipped, this hall grew fatter. Elira flickered briefly on another wall. A circle, blood on stone, her eyes searching for someone at the edge of the dark. You found her, I said quietly. I watched them take everything from her, Kael replied, except the ability to remember how they did it. I looked at the walls full of brides and understood this hall was where memories that refused to die were kept and fattened. If I step out of here, I asked, what will I still remember? The first time, Kael said, the hall only tastes. But if you come back, and especially if you try to alter any piece, he paused, listening to the stone underfoot, it will start charging. I suddenly could not recall the name of one of my old Suncrest maids, her face spinning like a wet painting. I clung to my mother's face, to Damien's, felt them hold firm while the hall expressed its displeasure with a low rumble in the stone. You should leave, Kael said, before it decides it wants more than a taste. Do you care what it takes from me? I asked, my tone sharper than I meant. Kael's covered face didn't change, but the way he stood shifted like a man stepping onto an old wound. I have enough of my memories trapped in here, he said. I don't require yours added to the collection. He turned his back without waiting for an answer, and the hall folded with him, the walls dimming like curtains falling. I followed because staying meant standing alone among copies of the worst things love could turn into.
I will not falter.
At the threshold, I looked back one last time, and in a patch of dark stone saw my own face. And behind it, briefly, Elira's, layered like two lines written on the same strip of parchment. As I stepped out, the hall fell quiet, but I knew it had marked me, the way you dog-ear a page you intend to revisit. I realized the castle was preparing a different kind of game when Lydia handed me a cloak heavier than usual. Lady Mayorith wants you in the council hall, Lydia said. High Priest Sareth will be there as well. Council Hall sounded like a room for counsel, but in Suncrest I had learned such chambers were usually built to pass sentence.
But I chose to run.
The corridor leading there was lower, narrower, the ceiling just low enough to make me dip my head. A small reminder of where I stood. The council hall door was a circular
want from
slab
me?
of stone with no hinges, sliding aside when Elian touched it. Inside, the room was like an upside-down well. High ceiling, walls sloping inward, everything spilling toward a black round table at the center.
This power
Lady Marith sat on
always
one
comes
side,
at a price.
Kale on the other, and High Priest Sereth Moore faced me, his ash-gray robes edged with red sigils. Sereth's face was like stone that had seen many winters. Only his eyes were young, bright, and hungry. Before him lay a scroll of skin slowly inching along, its edges writhing like a worm trying to escape itself. Princess Alara Vale, Sereth said, his voice low, the words
question
stretched
your
like a
judgment.
prayer cut in half. This is the original blood pact. At the words original pact, it felt as if someone had opened an old coffin in the middle of the table. Sereth touched the edge of the skin and writing rose up. Not ink, but red veins arranging themselves into lines. The first time, he read, Suncrest offered Princess Elira Dawncrest to stay the war. Elira's name pricked inside me like a stitch being tugged too tight. This time, Sareth went on, Suncrest offers you, Princess Alara Vale, not only in blood, but in memory. The letters on the scroll shifted, veins curling to write things I had never heard read in Suncrest's throne room. The bride shall become a living memory layer of Black Moon Keep,
You must
Sareth
secure
read.
the relic before
In
dawn.
return, the castle permits Suncrest to borrow its strength during times of rebellion. I heard Damien in every word, rebellion and borrowed strength. The Empire of Suncrest shall share partial control over the castle's structure via the blood channel, Sereth continued, through its heirs apparent. Blood channel, a term never spoken before the court, least of all in any blessing aimed at me. And, Sereth said, lifting his head, when the bride folds into the hall of wedding mirrors, Suncrest may demand that part of history be written in its favor. History, I thought, was being traded like livestock. Emperor Aldrich has sealed it, Sareth said, tapping a dark patch shaped like a sun-faced bird. Looking at that seal was like seeing my father's signature on my formal execution order. And what do the demons gain? I asked, forcing my voice not to shake. Marith smiled, the smile of someone used to weighing profits. We gain longevity, she said, a stabilized blood pact, and a new bride to keep the hall fed a while longer. Kyle said nothing, but his silence piled up like stone under the table. And me? I asked. What do I gain? Sereth tilted his head as if that question were interesting. You gain remembrance through generations, he said, in stone and blood in layers of history that never fade. I thought of the Hall of Wedding Mirrors and saw nothing glorious about it. Suncrest did not ask me, I said. He simply sent my blood. Emperors seldom seek a tool's opinion. Marith replied gently as if sharing a polite fact. That was when Kale finally spoke. The blood pact, he said, has been rotting for a long time. The room went quiet in a different way, the silence like the held breath before someone throws a candle into a barrel of oil. You speak as if you are not bound up in it, Marith said, her smile
They've been working
unchanged
together all
but her
along.
voice colder. I am the lock, Kale said, but you are the hands that keep shoving daughters into it. Sereth's eyes gleamed briefly with interest, like a scholar spotting a rare passage. I do not consent to my memories being used as ink,
And what do you intend to
I
do
said,
about it?
forcing my voice into the space before their argument became just theirs. Consent, Marith repeated, tasting the word like a strange dish. Such a human concept. The blood pact does not ask the bride, Sareth said. It asks those who signed it. Then summon the one who signed it, I said. Maereth and Sareth exchanged a look full of calculations I couldn't fully read. Very well, Maereth said, but we will do it by right. Sareth touched 2 fingers to the scroll, and it rolled into itself, shrinking into a small knot like a dried heart. He dropped it into a stone bowl and poured over it a layer of black liquid that reflected a room we were not sitting in. In the black surface, Suncrest's obsidian throne emerged, and Emperor Aldrich Vale sat there as if at the bottom of a well someone had uncapped. He glanced around as if sensing he was being watched. Then his gaze stopped on me where I sat on the far side of the world. Princess Alara, he said, his voice sounding in the council hall so clearly I forgot it was coming through water. He did not call me daughter, not once. You have heard the terms? Aldrich asked. I have heard them, I said. I have not agreed. Maereth's brows lifted slightly as if watching a game piece move in an unplanned way. Alara, Aldrich said, dropping the title. This is your duty to Suncrest. Duty. That word had once been used for playing the harp at banquets, not submitting my mind to stone. Suncrest will gain what it needs to quell unrest, Aldrich continued, to keep Crown Prince Damien secure. Hearing Damien's name in his mouth made the memory of my brother's tired smile flare. And that was something I did not want the hall to touch. If Suncrest wants my memory, I said, Suncrest should be here, not sitting safely behind a bowl. Aldrich was silent for a moment, his quiet like a door shutting between us. You will do what is necessary, he said at last, because that is how Suncrest survives. He had no need to persuade. He merely announced as he did the tax season. Maereth lifted her cup, raising it toward the black water. Then we are agreed, she said. Suncrest will have strength and we will have a bride. No, Kael said. The word dropped onto the table like a stone thrown into a lake reflecting a throne. I do not agree, Kael said, with using this bride as one more patch over your cracks. Sareth watched, silent, like a scribe deciding whether this exchange was worth transcribing. You speak as if you've forgotten who holds your key, Kael, Maereth said. She raised her hand and brushed the edge of the iron blindfold like a mother tidying her son's hair. The iron warmed, reddened, and Kael clenched his jaw, tendons standing out in his neck. The castle groaned, a low sound rising from the floor, as if his pain and its were on the same line. I half lurched forward, then stopped, not knowing where to touch without triggering another trap. Enough, Sareth said, and what frightened me was not knowing whether he spoke to Maereth or the castle. The iron cooled and Kael released the table, his nail marks left behind on the softened stone. Lord Vespern has voiced his opinion, Maereth said. The blood pact still stands. We will not let it fall for one bride or one child. I did not know whether the child she meant was me, Elira, or Kael himself. In the black bowl, Aldrich remained silent, like a man whose business here was finished and whose mind had moved on to another meeting. The image of Suncrest's throne faded as Sareth covered the water with his hand, like closing a coffin lid. When the rite ended, the council hall seemed a shade wider, as if the castle had exhaled after swallowing a decision. Elion led me out, his footsteps so soft I could hear my own heart beating to a single word.
No more bloodshed here.
Blood. At a bend, Lydia waited with a gray envelope, unsealed, unmarked. This came through the blood channel, she said, handing it to Elion as if passing a disposable knife.
Be a good boy, Kael.
Elion opened it. Inside was not paper, but a thin strip of skin. Letters burned into its surface. He skimmed it, and for a heartbeat his perpetually polite face showed something close to disdain. "From Suncrest?" I asked. "From Emperor Aldrich," Elian said, passing the strip to me. "Addressed to Lady Meredith. You may want to read it first." The writing on the skin was the Suncrest court hand I'd grown up seeing on every decree. Neat, cold, never trembling. "Meredith Vespern," it read. "I rely on you to fully enact the supplementary terms regarding Bride Alara Vale. Suncrest will require Black Moon Keep as its fangs in the years to come. My heir cannot be shaken by those dreaming of fire and freedom. When the bride is absorbed into the hall, use the rite of history to erase any record of weakness from Crown Prince Damien." I felt something pulled out of my chest. Not a memory, but air. "He means to use me as an eraser," I said, "to wipe Damien's mistakes clean." Lydia said nothing, but her eyes darkened, as if the letter confirmed something she'd suspected for a long time. "You are still his spy," I said to Lydia, "but right now, you've put this in my hands first." "I am loyal to information," Lydia replied, "and to those who might survive because of it." Elian cleared his throat very softly, reminding us that the castle was a diligent eavesdropper. "This letter belongs to Lady Meredith," Elian said. "And as of now, Lady Meredith has received it, minus the part you just read." I understood. The castle would know, Meredith would know, but so would I. And this time I wasn't just a blind sacrifice. That night, feeding hour passed without a game meant for me. The castle was busy adjusting to the new political cracks carved into it. I sat alone in the bride's chamber, walls gently pulsing, listening to the hall of wedding mirrors ring somewhere deep below. They, my father, Meredith, Sareth, all saw the castle as Tool, as Fang, as Locke. But the hall of wedding mirrors had shown me something else. Black Moon Keep was also a library. If they meant to use me as ink, perhaps I could learn to write in the opposite direction.
No matter how bitter.
I remembered
all that
Elira's
remains.
words, "Each layer you alter takes one of your own." Sareth had shown me the original blood pact. Aldrich had shown me what he wanted erased. Meredith thought I was just
Do you
another
trust me?
layer to add to the hall. KL thought I was another name shoved into the lock. Only the castle knew
Consider it
exactly
done.
what I was, a debt on hold. I laid my hand on the wall, feeling Black Moon Keep's hidden heartbeat, and whispered, not sure if to it or to myself, "If I have to pay, I will be the one who picks what gets sold." That night's feeding hour began with Slintz, and that
will
was how
not
I knew
falter.
Black Moon Keep was in a bad mood. The walls of the bride's chamber didn't heave as usual. They shivered lightly like someone trying to hold in a cough. Barefoot on the cold floor, I laid my hand on the wall and felt its heartbeat stutter in tight, uneven gaps. Lady Elira Dawncrest's words returned, ringing through my mind like a wet cloth.
There is the king.
"Each layer you alter takes one of your own." If Black Moon Keep was a library, then tonight it was choking on a page it couldn't swallow. Lydia tied my cloak at the throat, her fingers tightening a little more than usual. "Feeding hour will be disorderly tonight," she said, carefully avoiding the word dangerous. "The castle is rearranging some of the clauses in its blood."
What if it's true?
"And the hall of wedding mirrors?" I asked. Lydia stopped as if she had just stepped on a forbidden word. "Tonight you would be wise to avoid it," she said, "especially during feeding hour." Naturally, my mind heard that as an
I will not
invitation
be
wrapped in a
sacrificial
prohibition.
lamb.
The feeding hour bell tolled 3 times, the second strike catching in its throat before the third broke free. The great hall opened its doors, but I did not go. I turned away and walked toward the gleaming corridor Lydia told me to avoid. The castle knew, of course. I felt its attention slide after me like an invisible third eye. The hall of wedding mirrors greeted me with a breath of cold,
You
not from
cannot
wind
trust
but from
them.
stories not yet digested. Light on the black stone shimmered like water, and within it old weddings trembled to the rhythm of the feeding hour bells. I did not look for Elira. Instead, I searched for an unfamiliar face, an anonymous bride, because rewriting the history of someone I loved
Stay close.
felt too much like cutting straight into my heart.
I
At
am no
last I
longer
saw
bound.
her, a dark-haired girl with wide eyes, barefoot in a ring of dried blood, surrounded by faceless figures
Are
in
you
priestly
certain this is
robes.
the only way forward?
No name appeared on the stone, only a shaky line of script, bride 13th of a forgotten generation. This was someone history had decided was not
This
worth
path will
remembering.
take everything from you.
I laid my hand on the stone right over the ring of blood, and feeding hour seemed to notice.
Oh, the wise words of
The
Lydia.
flames on the black candles in the faraway great
If only
hall
life were
suddenly
that simple.
shrank, and the castle's bones cracked as if it were shifting position. Inside the stone mirror, the faceless priests raised their knives toward the anonymous bride's throat. Elira had said, to rewrite a layer, you have to put a different choice into it. I closed my eyes and imagined myself stepping into the circle, taking the girl's hand and dragging her out of the lines written for her. I whispered a single word into the stone: no. The scene in the mirror stuttered. Blades halted mid-air, the blood ring bled outward like ink in water, and a door in the memory swung open where there had been only wall. The girl bolted through the new doorway, vanishing from a frame that was still trying to perform its sacrifice. Then the entire memory layer shattered, not like glass but like dried skin being ripped apart. The hall of wedding mirrors
I will find the
convulsed,
truth.
fine fractures splitting the walls, and feeding hour finally coughed. That cough tore through the whole castle, snuffing the great hall's lights before they flared back in a sickly green. The instant the hall cracked, my own mind split. I thought of my brother and could not bring his name to my tongue. Crown Prince, something. Damien Vale's face spun like a smeared painting,
The focus.
the name under his portrait
is
suddenly
within
blank.
you.
Panic clawed up my throat. I clung to the wall and tried to haul the letters back, as if dredging a name from the bottom of a well. His name returned slowly, syllable by syllable, heavy as wet stone:
Past
Damien
will
Vale.
change.
I understood at once. The hall had sent the bill for the layer I had just tampered with. But the castle wasn't done coughing. A growl from deep below the stone rose into the sound of a dreheave. From the broken mirrors, something began to crawl out. First came hands built from shards of different faces, fingers tacky with loose letters. Then their bodies slithered free, warped figures, flat where they should swell, swollen where they should sink. Their skin a patchwork of peeled and restitched scenes. Each face was several faces overlaid, its eyes not pupils but blurred pits searching for anything still breathing. The castle had coughed up memory beasts. Half people vomited out because the hall had been forced to swallow things out of order. They did not distinguish demon from human. A heartbeat was all that mattered. One lunged at me, its arms stretching, fingers melting into letters that almost spelled my name wrong. Before I could scream, the wall behind me split open like another mouth, trying to drag me to somewhere safer or worse. From beyond, a familiar growl cut through the creature's scream. Cale Vespern burst through the gap, the iron over his eyes glowing with a red line like a crack on a mountainside. He drove his hand straight into the creature's chest, and its whole body burst into ribbons of script that flew apart. The letters fell to the floor, rolled and wedged themselves into cracks, making the castle groan as if overfull. Cale turned to me, his hand still smoking, and snarled, "Fool, playing with history." I wanted to shout back that I had only saved one person, but the words stuck when I saw his iron blindfold cracking deeper. The fracture peeled apart, revealing not a human eye beneath, but the red glow of a pit staring back at me. His true demon eye showed through in part, its iris woven from burning star orbits, staring through me and straight into the fault I'd just torn in the castle. "The seal is weakening," he hissed. "And you choose now to bend the hall?" I was about to answer when two more memory beasts slithered from the wall. One lunging for Kale, one for me. Kale stepped between us, his back shielding me, letting the one aimed at me slam into his chest instead. The creature stuck to the iron, licking across the blindfold as if trying to drink the memories locked beneath. Kyle roared, a sound no longer entirely human, and unleashed enough demonic power to burn the thing to ash-shaped letters. Every time he used that power, the crack in his seal spread, a web of blood threading across the iron. Around us, screams rose from other corridors as memory monsters spilled into the castle's other levels. I glimpsed Marith on an upper passage, her cloak turning into bone needles that shot out to skewer the beasts. Elsewhere, High Priest Sareth Moore drew circles in ash, trapping memory beasts in scripture loops that never ended. Demons and humans hacked at the same enemy, not because they'd forgotten their grudges, but because none of them wanted to be eaten first. In that chaos, Lydia Crane slipped out of my sight, and out of the castles, if such a thing was possible. She slipped into a small chamber I'd never seen, where the walls did not breathe but sat still as dead stone. In the center stood a shallow stone basin, its bottom ringed with dried blood from previous conversations.
They're here, Elara.
Lydia cut a shallow line across her palm, letting blood fall as she whispered, "Blood channel open to Suncrest." Black water rose from the basin's floor, reflecting Suncrest's obsidian throne once more. Emperor Aldrich Vale and Crown Prince Damien appeared, not before a court, but in a private room filled only with maps. "Black Moon Keep is destabilizing," Lydia said, her voice carrying no panic. "Memory beasts have broken loose." Damien leaned closer, and even as a reflection, his eyes held the same familiar exhaustion. "Kale's seal?" Aldrich asked. "Cracking deeper," Lydia replied. "Each time he uses power to shield the bride, it splits further." Aldrich nodded like a man hearing that a door was going to open on schedule. "We will prepare a lightning strike," he told Damien. "When the seal falls, Black Moon Keep will cease to be a lock and become an ownerless weapon." Damien looked into the water where Lydia was just a shadow and quietly asked, "And Elara?" Aldrich did not answer directly. He only said, "Suncrest must endure." In Black Moon Keep, I did not hear that conversation. I heard only cracking stone, monsters screaming, and my heartbeat skipping. With Kael, I backed into the center of the Hall of Wedding Mirrors, where shattered panels formed a jagged ring. I picked up a shard of stone mirror, and it reflected not my face, but another bride being slowly swallowed by darkness. I hurled it at the nearest monster. It shattered on its body, releasing the trapped memory as white smoke that drove the thing back for a heartbeat. "Don't throw more memories," Kael roared. "Each one is another debt." "Too late," I answered, because I had already started paying. At last, the castle seemed to have had enough. It spasmed, shortening corridors and lowering ceilings, squeezing the memory beasts back into the cracks like forcing food down a throat. One clung to the hall's ceiling, but a slab of broken mirror dropped, crushing it into character mud, then silence. The kind that feels like a book slamming shut.
Must be cornered by the
Kael panted, one hand pressed to the iron over his eyes, where the demon gaze was being forced back behind red fissures.
Elara,
I wanted to touch
is she
him,
alive?
but I didn't know where to lay my hand without pressing on the cracking seal. "Don't do that again," he said softly, his voice no longer hissing but hoarse. "The castle has killed for less than what you just did." "It meant to kill someone," I replied. I only reassigned its target. Kael gave a short, humorless laugh, then turned away, leaving me in the circle of broken glass. As his footsteps faded, I realized the hall was quiet, but the mirrors were no longer whole enough to give me back all that I was. I saw versions of myself in the fragments. At Suncrest, playing for banquets, on the road here, in the bride's chamber with my hand on living stone. When I tried to see Damien Vale, the image slipped like a fish through my hands. I remembered him. Red banners on the walls, the war board, his tired laugh telling me to learn survival, not how to fix dynasties. But when I tried to say his name aloud, my tongue stumbled, as if the hall had erased the first stroke of the letters. Da! I started, then had to drag the breath through my lungs to finish. Vale. The price of rewriting memory was not some vague blur. It picked a specific name, a single thread, and laid the knife across it. Standing amid the broken mirrors, I understood I had stepped into a realm with only two choices left.
This path leads only to ruin.
Either save others or stay whole.
There was never
I
any
knew the
bride,
Suncrest army had arrived
Just an
before any
illusion.
lookout shouted.
a test of faith.
The castle changed its breathing, like someone catching the scent of old blood from very far away. On the great hall walls, the stone darkened, showing tiny lights. Campfires, steel shields, ranks of soldiers stretching like a sentence repeated too many times. Crown Prince Damien Vale commands them, Lydia whispered in my ear, as if reading a caption under a historical painting. Her reports, drops of blood and words sent through the blood channel, had brought him to the edge of demon lands. At the far end of the great hall, Lady Marith Vesperne stood before High Priest Sereth Moore, her voice calm as if ordering more candles.
That name
"Prepare the sacrifice,"
fading.
she said. "We will stabilize the blood pact, then use the castle to crush their assault." Sereth placed his hand on the stone floor, eyes half-lidded, listening to the clauses groaning under the castle. "The castle is hungry," he said. "It accepts the bride." I wasn't consulted. Two demon guards closed in, hands cold as tongs, leading me up the black
They're
steps
always
at the center
watching.
of the hall.
We must be careful.
The altar was a raised slab with a shallow hollow in the shape of a body, as if it remembered the outlines of previous brides. I lay down, the cold stone embracing my back,
Archers' perches
fitting so
are
perfectly I
inadequate.
wondered if it had been
We
carved
will
for
need
me
to
long
reinforce
ago.
the eastern defenses.
The stone walls
The city
around the
will
great
fall
hall
by
began to
dawn.
whisper, not in words but in images pushing up through their surfaces. I saw countless versions of the future. Myself dying on this stone. Myself vanishing as if I'd never been. Myself a hollow figure pacing the hall of
rite
wedding
begin.
mirrors. On one wall, I saw myself turned into writing on the blood-packed scroll, a red stroke easily scratched out. On another, I stood behind Kael like a shadow no one could see, not even him. Sereth Moore stood at my right, ritual knife in hand, its blade forged from a shard of a broken oath. "By blood and memory," he intoned, "we bind the bride to the hall, the castle to the empire, the demons to the front." Above, Marith watched like someone attending a play she knew by heart beyond surprise. I did not see Lydia beside her, and that frightened me more than the knife. Somewhere beneath the castle's foundations, Kael Vesperne was making his own choice. I felt it in the way Black Moon Keep swayed slightly, tugged between two wills. Kael set his hand upon a scarred wall, where the castle kept its memories of the wars he'd led, and opened himself. He let Black Moon Keep feed on his war memories and blood, each battle, each corpse, each order that had killed both humans and demons. In return, red veins in the stone crawled up his arm, handing him temporary control. A bridle looped around the neck of an angry castle. The seal over his eyes split wider, his demon gaze blazing, reflecting the carnage both sides feared. In those reflections, I glimpsed Kael himself, the pre-written figure of the mad demon king, waiting to become real. In the great hall, Sareth lifted the knife and Suncrest horns sounded outside, forcing the castle to decide what to swallow first. "In the name of Princess Alara Vale," Sareth began. "The blood pact." The walls shuddered, memory layers piling over one another like pages blown loose. The brides, Elira, the nameless ones. Feeding hour, the sacrifice rite, the Suncrest attack, all blended into a chaos the castle itself struggled to swallow. In that moment I saw Lady Elira Dawncrest, not only in the Hall of Wedding Mirrors, but on the great hall ceiling itself, like a layer of memory surfacing on skin. I reached up, not with my bound hand, but with the hand inside me, the one that had once touched the hall. I touched Elira's memory layer, then deeper, touching the others, a circle of voices frozen for too long. "I have an offer," I told them, not with spoken words, but with the memories I laid before them like my last cards. I showed them Suncrest, the palace, red banners, Emperor Aldrich, Damien at the war board, promises of peace traded for bridal blood. "I will erase myself from Suncrest's history," I said. "No more in family trees, legends, songs, or collective memory. In return, you, the dead brides, are freed from your frozen state, no longer hung like ornaments in the hall. You become part of a freer consciousness within Black Moon Keep, no longer tied by old clauses to the role of sacrifice." Elira looked at me, her old smile now sharpened. "You accept vanishing from your own story?" "If I remain myself after they write me," I answered, "it is only to endure what they write. This time I want to choose who holds the pen." The circle of brides trembled, not in immediate agreement, but because the castle realized its very foundation stones were being bargained with. "Black Moon Keep," Elira said, now half part of the wall. "Do you accept to rewrite your terms?" From deep beneath me, the castle answered, not in words, but in a convulsion that bowed the entire hall, making Sareth stumble and the ritual blades slide away from my skin. Outside, the Suncrest army marched onto ground that softened beneath them like soap foam. Kael, now the castle's bridle, gave a single tug, and Black Moon Keep opened its mouth. The earth beneath the Suncrest troops split into stair-like chasms, plunging into darkness, swallowing ranks row by row like reading a list of names aloud and crossing each out. In Suncrest, in a genealogy archive, ink on scrolls began to crawl, closing the space where Alara's name had been, with nothing. Those who had once remembered me, a tutor, a maid, an old soldier, stopped mid-task, trying to recall who they'd just been thinking of. For the Suncrest Empire, Princess Alara Vale began to have never existed. Damien's political plan on the surface still succeeded. He remained sole heir, the front was secured, and history recorded a dangerous campaign with acceptable losses.
They come.
No one asked about a princess who had never been born. In contrast, in Black Moon Keep, the old bride's voices snapped awake like harp strings long overstretched, finally being plucked. The Hall of Wedding Mirrors stopped hanging them like frozen paintings. They flowed into the castle's veins, becoming lighter, sharper streams of thought. Kael Vespern, standing amid the swallowing of the Suncrest army, suddenly heard many voices in his head. Not madness, but a counsel. Elira's voice was strongest, but behind her came countless others, and among them a new layer called Alara, no longer belonging to Suncrest, but to the castle. For the demons, Kael was now not only Lord Vespern, but a man sharing consciousness with the souls once sacrificed. A fragile balance between Demon King and a choir of demon brides. Years later, they would give him many names: Warden of Brides, Mad King of the Black Moon, Keeper of the Unwritten. But in that exact moment, as the battle dust settled and the Suncrest screams vanished down the Earth's throat, the castle birthed a new room. It opened on the topmost level of Black Moon Keep, where there had been only roof and wind. Inside, the chamber was small, its walls not heaving but breathing so softly it seemed afraid of breaking what it had just hidden.
The one who holds the key.
Kael entered first, his hand still veined with the castle's red channels, the seal over his eyes closed, but the crack not entirely gone. At the far end, beneath a small window looking out at the moon, there was a person. Elara sat there, feet dangling from a stone ledge, arms around her knees as if she'd just woken from a sleep no one had dreamed of. She looked at Kael, and in her eyes there was no space for Emperor Aldrich, Damien, or the Suncrest Empire. But she still remembered him, as one remembers a storm that once saved them from a forest fire. "Did I know
What will
you
you do now?
before?" Elara asked, hesitant, like someone touching the edge of a word cut from the dictionary. Kael halted in the center of the room, hearing in his head the bride's chorus, half wanting to answer for him, the other half silent to see what he'd choose. "You did," he said, "but not in any way history will permit now." Elara nodded slightly, as if that made more sense than any other explanation. "If you have no past," Kael said, his voice lower, "Elara Vale. My family name hung between us, light as a mask not yet put on. What do you want to be in this castle? Its mistress, its prisoner, or the one who ends it?" Elara looked out the window, where the moon hung over Black Moon Keep like a silver scar in the sky. She smiled, not the smile of a Suncrest princess, but of someone given empty space to write herself. Elara did not answer. The castle held its breath. Kael waited. The brides whispered, and the question stayed open like a door no one had yet chosen how to walk through.